Hello and welcome to Exposed News Outlet. My name is Andrea and I'm your host. Hopefully, everyone is having a wonderful weekend in preparation for the upcoming holidays or had a wonderful weekend. It's always a fun time, well, usually anyway, but it can get expensive. I do also have a lifestyle YouTube channel as well where I add my home life hacks and other videos from gardening and recipes, stuff like that. I actually have one on fried ice cream. It's it's a bit long. It was one of my first videos. I probably should have spent a little bit more time editing it, but I didn't want to really go back and change it now. I kind of want to have it to look back on to see my growth over the years and see how it goes. However, I just want to leave it genuine. Maybe I'll make an edited shorter version later or something, but I'll link the page in the description box below so you can check that out. Also, speaking of high prices, I am a new content creator, obviously, and recording and video software, professional equipment can get really expensive. I do have a GoFundMe right now. If anyone is able to donate, I would appreciate it deeply. Anything helps. Luckily, I do have the basics right now for making videos. However, I'm wanting to add to my technology and software. Also, adding multiple cameras, actual, literal, professional cameras. Just my phone. Also, I need to add software, professional software, and editing as well as a MacBook Pro and a Mac Pro desktop, a professional video switcher, which can be pricey, and actually quite a few other things as well. But I won't give you my shopping lists. Anyway, it gets expensive. And I do appreciate everyone that watches my videos and supports my channel. That does help a lot as well. But for those of you that are able to donate, get better legal protection as well, or a legal protection plan as well, especially with the upcoming administration and how he's going, happy in the courts with suing people. Sue happy, I guess. I don't know. And now more than ever, it's important that we support independent journalists as there is so much disinformation and propaganda, and the corporate media oftentimes reflects the opinions of the CEO and owners. We've seen that play out, especially this election cycle, over and over. Even now, the LA Times, Washington Post, I think. Ultimately, if they write an article that makes someone powerful look bad, they want an opinion article by an ally of the person to be more flattering, to balance out the negativity. I mean, that is not trusting journalism or journalists. And in fact, it's quite contradictory. They usually have their own sovereignty and aren't influenced by the owners, so it's kind of strange. And this seems to be a reoccurring problem over and over again today with these elites. However, this is how the elites and the American and global oligarchs that look out for each other and continue to manipulate the masses in their favor, and everything that we see, hear, and eat, and do. But I'll link my GoFundMe in the description box below as well. Also, if you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel. As I touch on all of the important details, I will be adding more and more videos as I update my software and equipment as well. So don't miss out. I also go further into detail in areas that the general media won't, with giving history, blah, blah, blah. So don't miss out, and be sure to check the notification bell for all my latest videos and updates. Now let's get to the video. Fani Willis has been under investigation by Republicans in Georgia, trying to pull stunts and shows, frankly, an obstruction of justice as well as interference with official acts. It's downright harassment and defamation of character of Fani Willis, just to name a few charges that come to mind. And this is even after a judge ruled that she could stay on the case because she didn't do anything wrong, and the court or the state didn't prove so. And so it was sent to an appeals court where it's very clear that these individuals are also blatantly racist and white privilege runs rampant as these corrupt Republicans try to put Trump, Don the Con, above the law. Absolutely shameful. And Fani Willis was brave enough to bring this case. Many others clearly in opposition are not. They can't even try to hold others to the law if they pick and choose who it applies to and whom it doesn't. That's what this has always been about for centuries now. It's been about a different set of rules for the rich. They have even found that there was no there, although it may have appeared to have conflicts of interest. And so they had the individual that Fani Willis was working with, that she dated, removed from the case. However, Fani Willis spent several years on this case, and it's wrong that they would come back and then say that it looks or appears that she has improprieties. Not that she has improprieties, but that it appears or looks as if she does. And because they already said that she didn't. So in other words, they're breaking the precedence that has been in the state law for many decades. And because of these unfounded accusations, they disqualified her from the case as well, which means no one from her office now can take the case either. She's appealing this. Hopefully they win the case because this is just ridiculous and wrong. And it's a state case, so Trump can't do anything about it or pardon himself from in any state cases either. Let me show you this clip.
Tonight, the massive legal win for President-elect Trump in his Georgia election interference case. A Georgia appeals court kicking District Attorney Fani Willis off the case over the appearance of a conflict of interest due to her relationship with the special prosecutor in the investigation.
I'm not on trial, no matter how hard you try to put me on trial.
The ruling, the latest twist in a winding tale of money, romance, and allegations of election interference. Willis forced to acknowledge a relationship she had with the special prosecutor she appointed to the case, Nathan Wade, and facing allegations she benefited from the relationship by accompanying him on lavish trips funded by payments from her office. Willis taking the stand herself in an explosive disqualification hearing.
I don't need anything from a man. A man is not a plan. A man is a companion. And so there was tension always in our relationship.
Insisting the two split costs and that she repaid him for many expenses, but always in cash.
You never wrote him a check?
Ma'am, I don't have checks.
You don't have a single solitary deposit slip to corroborate or support any of your allegations that you were paid by Mrs. Willis in cash, do you?
No, sir.
Not a single solitary one.
Not a one.
Willis's testimony about her relationship with Wade, at times unusual.
Mr. Wade is used to women that, as he told me one time, the only thing a woman can do for him is make him a sandwich.
Willis's testimony about her relationship with Wade recalled birthday celebrations and trips they shared.
I spent $900 on each of our tickets to go to Belize. They would pair champagne, chocolate, and caviar. I did 50 big, very big.
But other combative moments earning her this rebuke from the judge.
It's going to be my first time out to caution. We have to listen to the questions as asked. And if this happens again and again, I'm going to have no choice but to strike your testimony.
Judge Scott McAfee ultimately decided to allow Willis to stay on the case, despite what he called a tremendous lapse in judgment, saying that although there was an appearance of a conflict, the defense did not fully prove there was one. But tonight, a Georgia Court of Appeals ruling Willis should be wholly disqualified from the case, saying the appearance of a conflict is enough. The ruling throwing into turmoil what some experts once considered the most legally perilous of Trump's 4 criminal cases, a sprawling indictment on racketeering charges over Trump's alleged attempts to overturn the 2020 election in Georgia.
We look at the facts, we look at the law, and we bring charges.
Willis's office accused Trump of pressuring officials to reverse President Biden's win in the Peach State, pointing to this now infamous call with Georgia Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger.
I just want to find 11,780
votes, which is one more that we have, because we won the state.
The indictment leading to a stunning moment in American history, the first mugshot of a former president. Trump joined by 18 co-defendants, a constellation of election attorneys and former administration officials, who Willis said conspired to pull off the election heist.
She's been exposed. I can't imagine they can continue on with that case.
Willis's office plans to appeal this new decision to the Georgia Supreme Court. But if Willis remains off the case, a prosecutor from a different county may pick up the prosecution. That process could be lengthy to revive a case now on life support.
Vaughn Hilliard joins us once again from West Palm Beach, Florida. So, Vaughn, as this case sort of winds through the legal system, as you alluded to there at the end of your report, have we heard from President-elect Trump and his team about this ruling from the appeals court?
We have heard from a spokesman for the now president-elect who said that on November 5th, American voters made their decision and called for the end of, as the spokesman put it, the end of political prosecutions. Of course, we'll wait to see whether the Georgia Supreme Court ultimately puts the district attorney, Fani Willis, back on this case. But for now, this is another legal victory for Donald Trump, his team, and a setback for those who sought to hold Donald Trump accountable for what they said was election interference dating back to the 2020 campaign. Tom?
All right, Vaughn Hilliard, we thank you for that. For more on what this means for the election fraud case against President-elect Trump, NBC News legal analyst Danny Savalos joins us now on set. Danny, we were just talking as we listened to sort of that greatest hits from that one day when she was questioned. You're not surprised by this. Will she appeal this?
She will appeal it, and I'm not surprised. And I wasn't surprised back when Judge McAfee gave his opinion, and here's why. Judge McAfee concluded on the one hand that Willis's and Wade's testimony was very problematic. He said it had the odor of mendacity, Tom. Now, Tom, I looked up the word mendacity, and it's bad. It means not truthful. It means dishonest, right? I'm sure you knew that. I didn't. But that, you can't make that conclusion and then conclude, well, my remedy is that either you're all disqualified or here's an alternative. That one prosecutor, Wade, as long as he goes, everything is fine. From the outset, that was a problematic resolution. It was saying two things at the same time, that the level of dishonesty was significant, but also the remedy doesn't even involve getting rid of the DA, that you had trouble with her testimony. Yeah. So I am not surprised that the appellate court arrived at this conclusion because they took the original factual findings and said, this is the proper outcome. Now, can reasonable minds disagree? Absolutely. That's why maybe they have a shot when they take it to the next and last stop, which is the Supreme Court, Georgia.
I want to put this up on the screen for our viewers so they can see this. This case obviously doesn't just involve Donald Trump, right? Fani Willis has been working years on this. It involves several defendants, okay? A total of 15, I think, who have pleaded not guilty, along with 4 defendants that agreed to plead guilty. Here it is, to some charges and cooperate with the government. Would a new prosecutor be starting from scratch here? I mean, what happens?
So now this case is essentially adrift with no one at the helm. You have to find a prosecutor's office because it wasn't just Willis that was disqualified. Her entire office was disqualified. So even though the indictment was not tossed, it's a case without a shepherd. There's nobody dragging this case through the process. It is truly adrift. So they need to find someone, whether the attorney general or another prosecutor is willing to take the case. And if you're an elected official, how interested are you in taking over this garbage fire that has become the case in Atlanta? Probably not.
So the big question, Danny, we have a president-elect coming in. Okay, this has just happened. Is this case done? Is this over?
In my opinion, this case was done the minute that hearing that we watched started. This case is in huge trouble. They have no prosecutor. And then even then, they have challenges with the case anyway. This is a jurisdiction that took 8 months to select a jury in a much less infamous trial. This is a place where I think Donald Trump, this case, I've been saying this for a while now. It goes away. I don't know how it's going to go away because there are so many off-ramps for Trump and the other defendants. But one way or another, I think eventually this case goes bye-bye.
But we begin with breaking news in Atlanta, where a Georgia appeals court has just stripped Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis from the 2020 election interference case against Donald Trump in that state. Let's bring in Greg Bluestein from the Atlanta Journal-Constitution and former Assistant Manhattan District Attorney Catherine Christian. So, Greg, this filing just came down. It's some 30-plus pages. Walk us through what we know.
Yeah, we're still going through the filing, but we know this completely upends what's expected to be the last criminal case pending against the former president. Remember, this case is still ongoing. District Attorney Fani Willis had that very high-profile questions about whether there was a conflict of interest involving former Special Prosecutor Nathan Wade. Well, this court ruled that there is an apparent conflict of interest that merits her dismissal from the case. I'll read you one quote. While we recognize that an appearance of impropriety generally is not enough to support disqualification, this is the rare case in which disqualification is mandated and no other remedy will suffice to restore public confidence in the integrity of these proceedings. So this can still be appealed to the Georgia Supreme Court. It is expected to be appealed to the Georgia Supreme Court, but this is a really decisive ruling against Fani Willis being able to continue this case.
Catherine, what's your reaction? What do you make of this ruling?
It's not shocking. It was shocking when we found out that there was this relationship, and you just said it was an unforced error. But usually appellate courts defer to the lower court, the trial judge, who fashioned a remedy. He said Nathan Wade, that's the man she was having an affair with, had to leave, but the office could stay. And this court has said, nope, they didn't. This court said that Judge McAfee did not really appreciate that her decision-making wasn't just the indictment. It was who to charge, how to charge it. And that's at the time when this alleged romantic relationship was going on. And they said that also was one of the reasons why they think it's more than an appearance of impropriety. It's a conflict of interest. And not just her, the entire office is disqualified. So this is another Trump indictment that sort of will disappear. And yes, they will appeal it, but, you know, Donald Trump's defense team will use the same arguments that they did for the Manhattan DA's office and say he's now going to be president. This should be suspended while he's president because you can't prosecute a sitting president.
So you think this just goes away, that this is the end of this case?
Well, practically, yes. I'm certain, I shouldn't say I'm certain, probably the Fulton County DA will appeal it, but Donald Trump is going to be president. And his lawyers are going to say, you know, he's not going to Fulton County to appear in any case. So if anything's going to happen, you have to wait until 2029 when he's no longer in office. So this effectively is another case that sort of will just, one of the 4 indictments that will disappear.
One option I am understanding, Greg, is this could end up being handed off to a different office, different prosecutor. Is there any other office or prosecutor in Georgia you think would make sense that would be willing to take this up?
That's such a good question because there is a prosecuting attorney's council that could ostensibly take up a case like this. But earlier on this year, that same prosecuting attorney's council special prosecutor decided not to pursue similar charges against Lieutenant Governor Burt Jones, who Fani Willis was earlier disqualified against seeking charges against because of another conflict of interest, a completely separate conflict of interest. So they've already signaled they're very unlikely to seek any sort of charges against any of these co-defendants. And it's also important to note that the judges, the benches, the appellate court benches in Georgia are very conservative. The Court of Appeals is very conservative, and the Supreme Court, 8 of the 9 justices were appointed by Republican governors. So it's a very conservative bench here in Georgia.
So to be clear, Catherine, this case and this ruling is not just regarding the charges against Trump. This is a RICO case. We know there were multiple defendants or co-defendants. What happens as far as those co-defendants?
All of the defendants, because of clearly if Donald Trump was affected by this conflict of interest, so were all of his co-defendants. It's not fair that they have to proceed, but Donald Trump gets off, meaning his case gets dismissed. So all of, and I believe there are 15 remaining defendants. It'll be
what about the people who took plea deals?
The people who pled guilty will probably argue that their plea should be withdrawn. That will be a whole other, proceeding. It could be argued that, no, their plea was knowing and voluntary and intelligent, but they will argue the same conflict existed for us, and we would have never pled guilty if we knew about it. So this will be continued at least to those 4 defendants and them trying to get their pleas back.
And, Greg, where does this leave Fani Willis?
Yeah, well, she just won re-election, so she does have another 4 years in office. There was a Republican challenger who tried to make this case a big part of her argument that Fani Willis should be unseated. Fulton County is one of the biggest Democratic strongholds in Georgia, so there was no surprise that Fani Willis won re-election. But her reputation is damaged, right? This was an unforced error, as we said earlier, and this was all of her own doing, and now it unravels, or it might unravel. One of the signature cases, not just of her career, but in Georgia. So it leaves her damaged, and it'll be interesting to see what case she tries to make when she is expected to appeal this to the Georgia Supreme Court.
And just to be clear, when they say these courts in Georgia are very conservative, they're also very racist. That's key word for racist, literally, as those two defining words often go hand in hand. As per NBC and Reuters, Tesla has had growing reports of the self-driving systems or advanced driving systems having technical issues that led to deadly crashes. And the National Highway and Traffic Safety created a program where incidents with self-driving cars have to report and disclose if they were specifically self-driving autopilot or not. And after several years of investigation, they have a report out, and it's rather alarming. Everything from the autopilot malfunctioning and sending Tesla cars crashing into fire trucks and other objects, other incidents with self-driving Teslas crashing into other things, even a case where one ran over a child getting off the school bus, and the child had to be life-flighted to an emergency room. A few months ago, Elon Musk was calling MAGA a cult and saying that it was cult ideology and that he would never support a cult. Ironically, shortly after the government announced that they had opened up an investigation into the self-driving cars, and specifically Tesla, surprise, surprise, there was a complete turnaround. Now, surprise, surprise, Elon has now bought Trump's election and is his first buddy, literally in the ear of the president. He's spent over $270 some million specifically on Trump's presidency alone. And so it comes with no surprise that Trump is now claiming that he wants to scrap the department that is leading these investigations that make Tesla look bad. Really bad, apparently, because his cars are extremely dangerous and have led to many deaths. That's why it's important to have these regulations in place for the safety of us civilians. Check out this clip.
So, speaking of the holidays, 2 years ago on Thanksgiving Day, so Thanksgiving Day 2022, the leader of one of the world's highest profile car companies made a surprise Thanksgiving Day announcement. He told people who owned his company's cars that as of that day, they no longer had to drive their cars. Starting that day, Thanksgiving Day, the cars would be able to drive themselves from here on out. Quote, Tesla full self-driving beta is now available to anyone in North America who requests it from their car screen, assuming you have bought this option. Congratulations to Tesla Autopilot/AI team on achieving a major milestone. So this is 2 years ago, again, 2022, Thanksgiving Day. Not really any warning this was coming, just, hey, if you bought a Tesla when you had the option when you bought it to pay a little bit extra so it would be capable of driving itself someday, if that day ever came. Well, that day has come. Happy Thanksgiving. It was Thanksgiving Day. The company CEO put out that announcement. Within a few hours, it had led to some news.
Now at 5, 16 people, including 8 kids, were part of a multi-car crash on the Bay Bridge, causing some major traffic tie-ups.
They say it happened so fast, a chain reaction crash eastbound on the Bay Bridge and inside the Yerba Buena Tunnel.
I thought I was a goner at first when it happened. I mean, you see something like that, it's like coming towards you at full speed. I thought, well, this is it.
So that was Thanksgiving Day 2022. Just a few months later, the news outlet The Intercept obtained video that showed that accident as it happened. It turns out it was a Tesla whose owner says the car was in full self-driving mode and the car just randomly braked super hard in the middle of the tunnel, which is what started that huge pileup of cars in the tunnel, the one that injured all those people.
Until today, we only saw the aftermath of the chain reaction crash last Thanksgiving Day. Drive-by video of cars stacked up in the Yerba Buena Tunnel, eastbound on the Bay Bridge, and a traffic jam that lasted hours. But Bay Bridge surveillance video now shows how it started. A 76-year-old lawyer from San Francisco told the CHP his white 2021 Tesla Model S was in full self-driving mode when it suddenly deployed the brakes. A total of 8 vehicles crashed, 9 people injured, including a 2-year-old boy. Just hours before the crash, Tesla CEO Elon Musk announced the launch of the full self-driving beta version, which he called a major milestone. But there are a growing number of reports of the Tesla technology unexpectedly slamming on the brakes. The National Highway Traffic Safety Administration assigned a special crash investigation team to look into what happened. They're already investigating dozens of incidents involving advanced driver assistance systems from Volvos, Cadillacs, Hyundai, Genesis, and Cruise, but mostly Tesla.
Mostly Teslas. And, you know, car crashes happen. We humans aren't all that great at avoiding the problem of hurting and killing ourselves and each other with our cars. Car crashes are a plague. And who among us can say whether robots might be better at driving than us overall, writ large? But in a country with more than 280 million cars and trucks on the road, clearly it's worth studying if we're going to make this change, right? It's worth studying whether letting robots drive our cars is going to be more or less safe than having us humans drive the cars. Well, the U.S. government is doing that studying. You saw a reference in that news report there to the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration looking into that particular crash and others like it. Well, the year before that big Thanksgiving Day crash in the Bay Area, that government agency started a program where car companies have to report when crashes happen while a car has been in autopilot or in full self-driving mode. They have to tell the government when that happens. So that means crashes like that one that happened in the tunnel in 2022 in the San Francisco Bay Area. Also from this other terrible crash that was right nearby in Contra Costa County in California the following year. This was a fire truck that got slammed into at speed by a Tesla that was on autopilot. The Tesla driver was killed. 4 firefighters were sent to the hospital in that crash. Earlier this year, the agency released its report on its findings after collecting all of this data for several years. It led to headlines like this, quote, Tesla's autopilot and full self-driving linked to hundreds of crashes and dozens of deaths. Government report described the data about these hundreds of crashes, but it also gave the specific details of some of them, including one particularly harrowing one from North Carolina. A 10th grader stepped off of a school bus. School bus was doing everything right. It was pulled over. It had its lights flashing, had all the warning signals that a school bus activates when it's letting off students to let everybody know around there that they need to stop. School bus was doing everything right. The kid was doing everything right. But a 2022 Model Y Tesla on autopilot mode nevertheless whipped around the stopped school bus and slammed into this kid, this 10th grader, who had to be medevaced to the hospital with life-threatening injuries. By the time that government report was issued, not only had individual crashes like that received a lot of local attention in the areas where they happened, but the overall problem was starting to come into focus. Reuters, for example, had already reported that a criminal investigation into these matters was underway targeting Tesla. Tesla had already disclosed in an SEC filing that it had received federal subpoenas for information about its full self-driving mode and its autopilot mode. Then just a few weeks ago, the government announced the opening of a formal federal investigation of Tesla's full self-driving mode in more than 2 million Teslas, more than 2 million cars. And that's a big deal. But you might have noticed that I said that report happened a few weeks ago. To be specific, that happened, the announcement of that federal investigation, that big, potentially very consequential federal investigation, the announcement of that happened in mid-October. What's happened between mid-October and now? Since then, you might have seen that Tesla's CEO, Elon Musk, has basically had himself surgically attached to Donald Trump's body. I mean, seriously, are they stitched together? Can either one of them get dressed alone at this point? And of course, Donald Trump won the presidential election last month. And so what happens now to anybody who is unsettled by the idea of a robot-controlled car driving itself into a nearby fire engine full of firefighters? Or a robot-controlled car slamming on its brakes without warning in the middle of a crowded tunnel full of cars going 55 miles an hour while people are all driving to go see family on Thanksgiving Day? What happens to anybody who might have those kinds of concerns? Reuters headline, quote, exclusive. Trump team wants to scrap car crash reporting rule. The Trump transition has apparently surveyed the landscape of public policy in the United States of America and has decided, you know what really needs to go? What needs to go as a matter of priority is this thing that we've had for a few years now where car companies have to report it when their car is on autopilot and it crashes into something. That's the new priority, apparently. Quote, the Trump transition team wants the incoming administration to drop a car crash reporting requirement opposed by Elon Musk's Tesla, a move that could cripple the government's ability to investigate and regulate the safety of vehicles with automated driving systems. Musk, the world's richest person, spent more than $250 million helping Trump get elected president in November. Removing the crash disclosure provision would particularly benefit Tesla, which has reported most of the crashes, more than 1,500 of them, to federal safety regulators under this program. Tesla has been targeted in National Highway Traffic Safety Administration investigations, including 3 stemming from this specific data. Now, what is the purported justification for getting rid of this rule and getting rid of it now? I mean, they can't just say, well, you know, this guy paid for the presidential election. Therefore, he kind of bought himself a government, and so he gets what he wants, right? You can't really just say that. Hey, you kids getting off school buses, watch yourself. Unless and until you can start paying for your own president, you're fair game on the side of the road. I mean, you can't say it that way. So how do you? They have to say something that sounds better than that. Well, this is what they came up with. Quote, the recommendation to kill the crash reporting rule came from a transition team tasked with producing a 100-day strategy for automotive policy. The group called the measure a mandate for, quote, excessive data collection. Oh, excessive data collection. That's the problem that needs to be addressed here in this photo. Excessive data collection. We have way too much data. Our thumb drives are all full. If we keep collecting all this data about self-driving cars killing people, eventually our phones will slow down or something. Too much data, clogging everything up. Excessive data collection. Quote, a Reuters analysis of the NHTSA crash data shows Tesla accounted for 40 out of the 45 crashes reported to the agency through October 15th. 40 out of the 45 fatal incidents reported. That sounds bad if you're Tesla, right? If you're Tesla, better to not have people ever hear numbers like that. Therefore, don't collect the numbers anymore. Stop collecting all this excessive data. Problem solved. Problem solved for Tesla and for Elon Musk. Problem not solved for the Contra Costa County firefighters who were in that truck. Problem not solved for the 8 kids in the giant smash up in the Thanksgiving Day tunnel crash. Problem not solved for the 10th grader medevac to the hospital in North Carolina after stepping off the school bus that the Tesla slammed into, right? Problem not solved for them, but it is solved for the billionaire. I should note that this reporting from Reuters is based on a document that Reuters saw. We haven't seen the document ourselves. We have also reached out to Tesla and to the Trump transition for comment. So far, we have not heard back. I'll let you know.
After years on the campaign trail, and yes, I do mean years, as he immediately applied to run for the 2024 election once he left office, specifically so that he would have some sort of shield, in his mind at least, from the legal cases following him. And apparently his cult followers in office felt that he should be above the law and get away with all fraud and illegal actions, trying to overthrow our government with insurrection and attempted coup. For years now, we've heard Trump and his sheeple cult members echoing and parroting Trump's own disinformation and lies. Lies that the inflation was from Biden or the Democrats, when Trump is literally the most responsible for the inflation. He is the one that gave corporate elites tax-free rides for 8 years as they expire next year in 2025. He also spent ridiculous amounts of money recklessly. And then, when we were plagued with COVID, he failed epically. These disasters altogether, coupled with corporate elitism, greed, is what led and drove up the prices and kept them there. And Trump, at least for the past several years, more so this last year ramping up to the election, Trump kept up with these demonstrations where he described the word groceries, which he acted like he had never heard the word before in his life, by the way, and went on to praise the word for its beauty, which it's not what I think of when I think of or hear the word groceries, but I'm sure many others feel the same way. But he went on to say, during these bizarre and strange events, that he and he alone would fix these high grocery prices. This is what he said over and over and over all year long, and probably even longer, only to walk it back in the New Times interview published in Time magazine. Now that the election is over, Trump is admitting that once prices go up, they're hard to get back down. And that somehow his plans for the energy sector will bring down the prices of food. Or, in other words, all the promises that Trump made on the campaign trail were just broken promises and lies to keep himself out of prison. Nothing more. MAGA has been played, literally. Y'all, I'm sorry. Y'all got played. And sadly, many of them may never figure it out. I'm sure they will feel it, though, as prices increase instead of going down. And when inflation skyrockets and things start coming apart at the seams, because let's face it, the Republicans can't get along, let alone lead. They don't even have a cause. And the voters were duped because the people in power in the Republican Party are only out to help enrich themselves and their billionaire oligarch buddies that continue to flow money into their pockets. Let me play this clip.
President-elect Trump taking a victory lap on Wall Street, ringing the opening bell at the New York Stock Exchange after being named Time Magazine's Person of the Year. But just days after sharing this assessment about the election with NBC's Kristen Welker.
I went on groceries. It's a very simple word, groceries.
In his interview with Time, the president-elect backed off his central campaign promise to lower prices for consumers, including on groceries, saying, look, they got them up. I'd like to bring them down. It's hard to bring things down once they're up. You know, it's very hard, but I think that they will. I think that energy is going to bring them down. I think a better supply chain is going to bring them down. Throughout the campaign, Trump repeatedly vowed lower prices.
But prices will come down. You just watch. They'll come down, and they'll come down fast, not only with insurance, with everything. It'll also bring your grocery bill way down.
Trump also detailing a move he plans to make in his first hours in office, pardoning defendants from the January 6th Capitol riots. Asked if that would include those who committed violent acts, Trump saying he'll look at each case, adding, it's going to start in the first hour that I get into office, and a vast majority of them should not be in jail. Meanwhile, the current administration issued a flurry of pardons and commutations for nonviolent offenders yesterday, in what the White House said was a single-day record. President Biden commuting the sentences of almost 1,500 people and pardoning 39 others. The president saying many of the 1,500 would not be convicted if they were tried today. It comes 2 weeks after President Biden pardoned his son Hunter, and the president is signaling clemency may be a focus of the last weeks of his presidency, writing, I will take more steps in the weeks ahead. The Trump team's effort to shore up Senate votes for his top cabinet administration picks is going to begin again next week with Robert F. Kennedy Jr. among those expected to begin making the rounds on the Hill. But Pentagon pick Pete Hegseth, he's going to be back at it again this weekend, heading to the Army-Navy football game, where a source close to Hegseth tells NBC News that he will meet with President-elect Trump.
Hopefully everyone learned some new things from this video. I have more videos coming soon as well. Several videos where I will take a deeper dive into these candidates that Trump has nominated for these cabinet positions. I have a video on Tulsi Gabbard coming out that I'm about to release as well, so watch for that. As well as RFK Jr., Kash Patel, and a few others. So don't miss those. Thank you for watching my video to the end. If you haven't yet, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. Be sure to smash the like button and share these videos on your social media pages as well, and get these important facts out to the masses. It's time America wakes up and realize that these billionaire oligarchs are not going to look out for our best interests, but rather their own interests and their own bottom line. Also, if you're able to donate, check out my GoFundMe in the description box below. As always, be kind to yourself and be kind to others as well. Thank you. Happy holidays.